Good morning. Good morning to all of you. I'm Reverend Dr. Debra Haffner, and starting this Wednesday, I will be your transitional minister through the end of June. I'm so looking forward to getting to know you, and I will begin leading worship regularly in March. We'll be announcing some Meet the Minister events later on this week in the flash. Today, I invite you into the spirit of worship with these words from Kalidasa, a 5th century prophet who many now believe was a woman. She writes, "Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lies all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is already a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day." Welcome to worship.
Good morning. I'm Nikki Willard, and I welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Huntington's virtual Sunday service. Welcome on this snowy day on Long Island. As always, it is good to be together. We are streaming live on Zoom this morning. I'd like to extend a special welcome today to visitors who may be joining our service for the first time, as well as any newcomers who are returning. If you are new to our congregation and want to speak with someone to learn more about us, please contact our office at office@uufh.org. We'll put this information in the chat. As always, even though our tech team behind the scenes is amazing, sometimes things happen, so please be patient with any technical mishaps. Know that whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. I have a few brief announcements that appeared in this week's Flash, our newsletter. Hi, the Huntington Interfaith Homeless Initiative, which provides shelter and food to homeless men during the winter months, is still in need of some help. There are 3 ways you can currently support Hi. You can sign up to make breakfasts and lunches. There are still a few spots left. There is also a need for a number of donations: warm winter jackets and parkas, blankets, socks, long underwear, and even individual serving cups of soup and noodles that only need hot water added. Lastly, you can also donate gift cards for Dunkin' Donuts, Burger King, and Taco Bell in $5 denominations, as well as monetary donations to help support the program. If you'd like to help out in any of these ways, contact Melissa Dinsman for further information. Join the Long Island Poor People's Campaign on Wednesday, February 16th from 7 to 8 p.m. for the next webinar in their Dynamics of Long Island speaker series. The guest speakers will address the history of slavery in New York State and share data and stories of enslaved people on Long Island in the mid-17th century. You must register in advance for this meeting. The Investment Committee invites committees as well as individual members to make proposals for funding through our endowment. These proposals should be for projects or efforts not covered in our fiscal operating budget. Please email proposals to our treasurer, Gerard Neighbor, no later than March 1st, so the Investment Committee can make recommendations to the board by the end of March. Please remember that your pledges for the UUFH fiscal year 2022-23, which begins on July 1st, are due by February 15th, so the board can begin putting together a budget to present to the congregation. And lastly, I would like to welcome Reverend Dr. Debra Haffner. She will serve our congregation as part-time contract minister through June 30th. And of course, as you know, she is leading our her first service with us this morning. We are delighted to welcome her aboard. She will also stay on after our service today so we can get to know her a little better and she can begin to get to know us as well. For further information about any of these announcements, including Zoom links and email addresses, please refer to this week's edition of The Flash. And now I invite you to settle into your bodies and quiet your minds as we breathe deeply together and settle into our time of worship. Please join me in saying our mission statement. The words are on the screen. In religious community, we nurture our individual spirits through caring for one another and helping to heal the world. Please join me in singing our affirmation, Common Ground.
On different roads we travel here to meet as one on common ground, to seek the truth with open minds, with loving hearts and helping hands.
Sorry about that. I'm having trouble unmuting. I light my chalice today, this morning, and I invite you at home to light your own chalice with these words by Florence Caplow. We kindle this flame, honoring the doorways in our souls, the windows through which we gaze at one another, the balconies where we catch glimpses of sky, the thresholds we stand on this morning, wondering, hoping, fearing, dreaming.
Okay, I did it too. Sorry. If there are children present, I'd love you to come and gather around the Zoom computer. This is a special story this morning for the young people, a story about the many changes we go through in life. And when it's over, perhaps after worship, you'll want to look up more about cocoons and butterflies with the grown-ups in your life. This is an Indian story about a poor man who sells cocoons for a living. The little boy watches him every day. And one day the man calls him over and says, looking at something just like this, do you know what beauty lies was inside this chrysalis, these cocoons? I know you watch me every day, so I'm going to give you one so you might see it for yourself. But please don't touch the cocoon until the butterfly comes out. The boy was enchanted with his cocoon and he hurried home to await the butterfly. And after some days, it started to look like this, where he could see the butterfly wings. And then in a few more days, he could see the butterfly beating its wings against the hard wall of the chrysalis until it appeared it would surely die if it didn't come out right away. So, wanting to help, the boy took the cocoon down and he pried the chrysalis open. Do you know what happened next? You know what happened? Out flopped a wet, brown, ugly thing, which quickly died. The boy went to the man crying, "You gave me a bad cocoon. There wasn't any butterfly at all." The seller explained to the boy, in order for the butterfly to fully develop, it's necessary that she beat her wings against the walls of the cocoon. I know you were just trying to help, but it is in her struggle that her wings become strong and beautiful. When you denied her her struggle, you took away her chance to survive. And then he gave the boy another cocoon. The boy took it home, and this time when the wings began to beat, he remembered he needed to be patient, that change takes time, that sometimes the struggle has to happen before the change. And so one day, beating, the butterfly burst through and she entered the world. I wonder if you've ever had a hard time being patient. I know I do all the time. But what the cocoon teaches us is that sometimes we need to be in the dark. Sometimes we need to wait patiently to see what is waiting to be born anew. And that's the end of the story. I look forward to meeting all of you children in person next month.
I invite us all to sing Spirit of Life. Following the song, we'll enter into a time of silence and then prayer. As you participate at home, remember that it's not about the perfection of silence, but the intention. Join with me in singing now.
Sing
This is the time in our service when we hold all those tender personal concerns which are close to our hearts this day. On behalf of the fellowship, I extend condolences to John and Maria Nielsen and their family on the loss of John's older brother, Nick Nielsen, who passed away unexpectedly this past week at the age of 67. John wishes us to know that Nick was well loved and had a great sense of humor. He will be missed very much. I now invite you all to lift up into the care of this community the names of those people who are in your thoughts and hearts this morning by putting their names in the chat box to be read aloud. Gary, Mary Monnier, Diane, Sue, Kevin, Marina, Nick, Christine, Vince, Jeff and Jessica, Dottie and Mark, Genevieve, Janet, Tom, Laura, Deb, Grandpa, Roz, Vivian, Anne Hanley, Martha, Reggie, Leah, J.F. Shaw, Evelina, Aunt Roz, Stephen, Ruth Ann, AJ, Becky, for these names and all the names written silently on the tablets of our hearts, we pray.
Let me invite you into the spirit of meditation and prayer. Spirit of life, we know you by many names, or perhaps no name at all, but the whispering in our heart. We ask for prayers for those who suffer. We ask for prayers, those who are remembering the life of Nick Nielsen, gone way too soon, and for his brother and sister-in-law and all those who loved him. We hold deep in our hearts the people of the Ukraine, knowing that they are living in a time of incredible uncertainty and fear. For some of us, we think of our relatives from long ago in that land. We hold in our hearts the names we have heard who are struggling with illness, with financial difficulties, with relationship issues, with new diagnoses, with the daily struggles of what it is to be a human and to be alive. And we also lift up those who are celebrating for the birthdays and the anniversaries and the good test results from the doctor and the new relationships and the new jobs and the chance that we all have to be alive again. Our blessings that we have another day. We have today to reach out, today to enjoy, today to perhaps watch the Super Bowl and overeat. Today, as we watch the snow, we know that it is good to be alive and it is good to be together. And so may it be, my friends. Amen.
Our split plate, excuse me, for the month of February is the Huntington branch of the NAACP. The vision of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is to ensure a society in which all individuals have equal rights without discrimination based on race. Founded in 1909, the NAACP is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights organization. From the ballot box to the classroom, the thousands of dedicated workers, organizers, leaders, and members who make up the NAACP continue to fight for social justice for all Americans. The Huntington branch works with the state and national NAACP offices to strengthen the commitment of supporting equality and justice in the Huntington community. You can send a check to the office or donate through the website as seen on your screen. You can also donate through the Vanco mobile app, which can be found on the App Store or Google Play. Thank you for your generosity.
Our reading this morning is from Rainier Marie Rilke, an Austrian poet and novelist who died in 1926. You perhaps have heard these words, but they're some of my favorite. Be patient with all that is unresolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms or like books are not written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which can't be given to you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answers.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know.
Thank you, Jay. That was so lovely. And I am so looking forward to working with you. I also want to tell you that at the end of the sermon, we're going to hear an interlude of that music, a practice that I learned from my last congregation to give you some space to think about the sermon before we do the close of the service. So the first time I attended a Unitarian Universalist church was Mother's Day, 1986. My firstborn was a year old, and we were beginning to look for a religious home we could share. I come from a very secular Jewish background. My former husband had been raised Roman Catholic. So we were invited by a dear friend to go with him to the Unitarian Church on River Road in Bethesda, Maryland. Dr. Doug said to me, "You have to promise to come twice because some weeks are not as good as others." He was right. I still tell people that when they're thinking about visiting one of our churches. That morning, the minister's sermon was about Gaia, the Earth Mother, and the choir sang feminist anthems. I loved that the church was feminist and social justice seeking, that the minister used many sacred texts and didn't present just one truth, and that nobody was going to ask me to give up my Jewish identity. Most of all, I love that rather than providing us with preformed answers or rote things to say, the minister asked us to ponder questions in our own hearts. I knew instantly that I had found my people. A year later, we moved to Westport, Connecticut, and we began attending the Unitarian Church in Westport, the congregation that I later served for 13 years as its community minister. About a year later, we were coming home from church one day, and I was driving, and I asked my 3-year-old daughter what she had learned in Sunday school that morning. She said, "We talked about God." So in the front seat, I gulped, not sure I was so happy about this. And I asked her in my best non-judgmental parenting voice, "So honey, what did you learn about God?" And she, from the back seat, answered, "We learned that God is the happiness inside our hearts." We learned that God is the happiness inside our hearts. I became a member the next week. It seemed like all anybody needed to know. The more I learned then, the more this faith, our shared faith, resonated with me. I understood instantly the Unitarian Universalist belief that we are not promised a better life somewhere else as a reward for our suffering. Our faith teaches us that salvation is universal. No one is condemned to hell, except perhaps for this suffering we will experience on earth. Our eschatology, that's the systematic belief about what happens in the afterlife, teaches us that we are already living on holy ground. It is this earth, this time, that is the only one we know for sure we have been given. The only one we probably will ever have. You'll hear more about that in my next sermon. But we also all know, don't we, that holy ground we share can also be shaky ground. And then the theological questions become very practical ones. This is especially true in times of transition, the times between the ending of one time and the new beginning. The COVID pandemic has thrust the entire world into a time of transition. We know instinctively that the way we used to live is over. We will never return to the way life was before March 2020, yet we're not quite sure what the new beginning will be or when we'll get there. And perhaps you are also in a time of personal transition. The pandemic, as you know, has unleashed the great resignation, as well as a great wave of marriages and a great wave of separation and divorces. An intense examination about what really matters in a life that we learned could end 2 days after contracting a virus that none of us had even heard of 2 years ago, that 900,000 people have died that way. In many ways, we are all sharing of the liminal space after that abrupt ending 2 years ago, still not sure, like the chrysalis, what's going to emerge. And this congregation, you are also in a time of transition. Your minister of 8 years has left, your office director left. You don't quite know who you're going to be in the future. In these times of transition, what author William Bridges called the neutral zone, what the biblical writers called the wilderness, it is common to feel anxious, uncomfortable, depressed, and untethered. We're like the butterfly that's still in the cocoon in the story. Perhaps it's time for each of us and this fellowship to be living the questions. I think it helps if we remind ourselves in transition time that we are not alone. During an unexpected or unwanted transition, finding out we've been fired, that we have a serious illness, that our partner wants a divorce, or any number of unwanted changes, we may feel that we are alone facing these issues. But we know other people have been fired. Other people have found out they had cancer. Other people have had spouses leave them and that they've survived. And you all know other ministers have left this congregation. Our history and other people's experiences can help us create the new beginnings. In the case of a ministerial transition, let me reassure you, there is an orderly process recommended by the Unitarian Universalist Association and by your own bylaws. In seminary, I remember my field education professor telling us that we would all be interim ministers, that our ministries with a specific congregation or community agency would have a beginning and they would have an ending, that no one serves a church or a nonprofit forever. I am confident from having met them that your board is well equipped to lead you through the transition to your next settled minister. And I hope that over the next 5 months, we can find ways to support this beloved religious community during this transition. You need each other, my friends. Think back to the packed standing room only sanctuaries after 9/11 or after the 2016 elections. People turn to religious community when they seek answers about the tragedies around us, about the uncertainties we're all living in. But that's not about a desire, is it, for theological or liturgical answers? Instead, we come together at these times for the same reasons that we come together for weddings and memorial services. We come for the comfort, kindness, and community we offer each other. We need one another. We know we want to share the joys in our lives with others, and we know that we can't face the tragedies alone. We know that it is in community that we can tolerate the suffering and the small dyings we all face, the changes and the liminal spaces. And so I ask you, I implore you, this is not a time to pull back from the fellowship. Your fellow congregants need you now to be here, to show up, to volunteer, to stay involved. We need each other. And for the next period of time, my friends, I want you to know I've got you. There is a sign over my desk that reads peace. It does not mean to be in a place where there is no noise, trouble, or hard work. It means to be in the midst of those things and still be calm in your heart. It's hanging over my desk because I need the reminder. When we feel that peace about ourselves, our relationships, our careers, our future, or when we feel that peace in nature or listening to art, listening to music or looking at art or worshiping, we feel truly engaged in our lives. Don't we feel more alive? See, we know deep in ourselves that life must be more about love and connection than it is about suffering. When we are truly connecting with our friends, our partners, hugging our children or grandchildren, even with a mask on, or watching a sunset, exercising, doing good work together in community, we at times glimpse that life is impossibly precious and beautiful. There are times when I am leading worship that I feel my heart crack open with such love for the congregation I serve that I am speechless. In such moments of grace, we rest into the questions themselves. You'll soon learn that I love sharing stories from different traditions. We heard an Indian one before, and now we're going to hear a Buddhist one. This is one of my favorites. It's the story of the monk and the crystal glass in another difficult time. The people of the town came to the wise old monk. The monks in these stories, you know, are always wise and old, and asked the monk, how could he be happy amidst all the suffering, amid the certain knowledge that everyone dies, that the bad days were surrounding them? And so the monk held up the beautiful glass on his desk and said, you see this glass? It was given to me by a special friend. I love this glass, as indeed this glass was given to me by a friend. But I know that one day the wind may blow and knock it over, or someone may accidentally knock it off my desk and it will shatter into hundreds of pieces. See, I know the glass is already broken, and so I choose to enjoy it immensely. I know that I only have a limited time with you. My glass is already broken. So is yours. The glass is already broken. So I want and hope and pray that you will choose to treasure it. I hope you will choose to enjoy it immensely. Remember Rilke, live everything. Live the questions now. Have trust Have faith that someday the answers will surely emerge. And so may it be, my friends. I am so glad to be with you. Amen.
Let us now extinguish our chalices with these words by Elizabeth Sella Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Closing words this morning are from the poet Donna Markova. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance to live, so that which comes to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. I want to offer my appreciation to Dr. J and to the tech team and to Nikki for serving with me, and to Jim for all he did to help us get ready for this service. I look forward to many more services with you. My tradition is to end all of my services with the following words. They are my benediction, my blessing to all of you. And so each week you will hear me say, my friends, go in peace. May our real service begin.
Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow make us one, into all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Words and deeds of those before us, waken here to keep us strong. Lend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Loyal guides in love and duty, lead us with a trusted light. Blessed are they whose inward beauty shows the path of truth and light. Honor is their earthly prize. By their work we realize faith calls us on. Faith calls us on. We have shared a radiant hour. We have shared where the truth has made us free. And true. In the Spirit's gracious power. Spirit of grace. Drink the good that gift shall be with us forever. Bright the path before us now. Ever bright is the path. Joyful pilgrims now we rise. Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us yes. Life calls us on. Oh yes. Life calls us on. Life calls us on.
Our Sunday service has now finished. If you'd like to stay on and chat with Reverend Debra, just stay right here and our fellowship time will begin shortly. If you are now leaving us, please have a wonderful and peaceful week. I hope you will join us again next week.